And so what I'm here to do is to help provide you with a simple plan and easy way to stay organized and productive, which is where time management comes in, right? Every entrepreneur has to understand time management. So my name is Arvell Anthony. I'm the owner of Vorrei Consulting, which is a business strategy consulting startup firm specifically focused on startup entrepreneurs. I've been in business for about 12 years. I've worked with over 50 plus startup entrepreneurs. And I recently created BizMind Academy, which is an online course academy dedicated to simple and effective strategies and tactics that really favor the startup entrepreneur, right? A lot of courses you can take out there that help you with more complex things, but I'm really focusing on just the startup entrepreneur and everything that a startup entrepreneur has to go through. So I'm going to share my screen. That way you guys can see the slides that I have today. And we're really going to just dive into one of the courses. It's BizMind Time Management. And we're going to dive into one of the time management strategies. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me know when you guys are able to see my screen. Perfect, right? So we're diving into one of our courses on the BizMind Academy, which is the BizMind Time Management. And one of the strategies that we're going to be talking about today is actually day 4 of the course, which is step 3 and out of our 6-step time management strategy, which is entitled Planning Your Time. So today what I'm going to talk to you about is I'm going to introduce you to planning. I'm going to actually talk to you about the planning components, break it down for you so you understand what planning really is all about. I'm going to teach you a strategy to plan your time. Then I'm going to teach you actually 2 more strategies, one called time estimates and one called chunking. All right, so I'm going to dive right in. Let's not waste any time, no pun intended. So as an entrepreneur, you hear what Jen's talking about, you hear what Roy's talking about, right? You need to be effective with managing your time if you're going to get anything accomplished. And so you need to understand planning, right? So let's just begin with the definition of what planning is. And planning is really the process to think about activities required to achieve a desired goal. It is first and foremost the activity to achieve desired results. And it involves the creation and maintenance of a plan, such as psychological aspects that require conceptual skills. So let's just break this down into the 3 sentences and we'll go a little bit deeper. The first sentence talks about the activities required to achieve a desired goal. And that really sums it all up, right? This week's lesson is really talking about we need to get stuff accomplished. We got goals to get accomplished. Most of us have a lot that we want to get accomplished, but we actually don't really properly plan the time up front to actually think about all of the activities that are required to achieve success at anything we want to accomplish. And it's very easy to put things on a list, but it's not as easy to get things accomplished, which is why most bucket lists are never accomplished. It's due to this critical step of really understanding, you know, what that desired goal looks like, right? And really taking the proper amount of time to think through the intricacies of how you will get each task accomplished. And that's really one of the very important steps of our 6-step strategies, right? This thinking process. Next, you have the second sentence, which is it's an activity to achieve desired results, right? And so what that means is you have to actually have the forethought of understanding what good looks like. What is your desired result? What does done really look like? Are you actually clear on that? Because most of us can really obviously say we want to get something done, but it's never just getting something done, right? It has to sometimes be done in a specific way, in a specific manner. It has to have a specific result, right? So we don't actually just want to get things done sometimes. We actually have a specific way it has to happen. And so we don't necessarily take the time to think about that and then also plan for that. But you need to understand what that desired result is so that you can then plan around it. And last but not least, it involves the creation and maintenance of a plan, right? So ultimately, you need a plan. And so for each task, you actually, what I would call, you need a plan of attack, so to speak, on how you plan on approaching a task, working through the task successfully to actually accomplish that task, right? So as you try to achieve any desired result, you should really give yourself the best shot at succeeding. And so that means you need to make sure you have the right amount of time scheduled out for you to get your task accomplished. And this is why the planning phase is so important. So that's why today we're talking about planning your time, is because you really need to understand what it's about and what requires to take the amount of time necessary to understand each task in such detail that you can then really know how much time it'll take you to get it done. Because that's the only way you can really get anything truly accomplished and manage a schedule with multiple moving parts, personal life goals, business goals, sales goals, social media. You're hearing all these different things you're going to have to do, but taking the time to understand where you're trying to get to is one of the most important things, because after you create any task that you need to do, one of the strategies that you need to do is you need to create space in your day to take time to engage in what I call a thought experiment, of literally walking yourself through each task and thinking through what it would realistically look like to get it accomplished. And that's it, right? But most of us usually overcomplicate this simple but a very effective strategy, right? One of the things that most of us do to complicate things is we start jumping into the when and the how, the logistics during this thought experiment phase, right? Do not do that. At this point in your thought experiment, the when does not matter. Just imagine your schedule is really open and you have all the time in the world. And then think about the task you're trying to get accomplished, and then talk yourself through that task step by step and visualize everything that you would need to do to actually get it accomplished, right? A good example is like cooking a meal, right? For cooking a meal, there are many steps to cooking a meal. We got thawing out goods, perhaps preheating an oven, prepping ingredients, measuring ingredients, cooking, et cetera, et cetera. That's a simple task that a lot of us probably have to do. But as you see, I just listed out 5, 6 different tasks that if you were to try to schedule just something as simple as cooking without consciously taking this planning step seriously, yeah, of course, you'd probably be able to get the cooking accomplished. But without proper planning, if there were tasks that you needed to get done beforehand and tasks that had to get done at a specific time afterhand, you'd probably bleed into either one of your schedules, and then you'd have to rearrange your schedule. So again, at this point in the thought experiment, the when does not matter. Just take the time to really plan out your time, right? And so what does that mean to you? What that means is this simple but effective technique that brings you the most success out of planning your time through this thought experiment is called the time estimation, right? So determine the amount of time it will take for you to realistically accomplish each task. So I'm going to go use the example of cooking that we were just talking about, right? There were so many different parts of cooking. So let's just use cooking as an example, right? Cooking something like a turkey dinner or a casserole. You can quickly see that, if you didn't take the time to think through this in detail, you've got an hour for thawing frozen goods, preheating is 45 minutes, prepping is 10 minutes, measuring is 10 minutes, cooking is 20 minutes, baking in the oven is another, 1 hour, right? So something that, even these are just guesstimation times, right? I'm just throwing it out there, but just to make a point. But roughly, you see that just to start cooking, you might have actually needed to plan to be able to preheat the oven. So that's an hour before you start cooking, you have something to do. And then you need actually an hour and 40 minutes to actually just cook the full meal. So that's roughly 2 hours right there without adding a buffer, right? And cooking, usually you're not cooking one thing. Sometimes you have to cook pasta, veggies, rice, maybe even prep a salad, right? And then there's also washing the dishes and pots and pans and utensils, etc. You get the point, right? Something as simple as cooking actually can be complicated if you need to schedule it into your time. And that's why this time estimate is so crucial, right? It's one of the main reasons why I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs fail in getting their tasks accomplished, and then they have to revisit tasks over and over and over, right? And it's one of the things that we talk about in the time management course, the methodology of to not revisit your tasks, right? Because you have maybe 12 hours in a day if you're going to work. Some of us burn the midnight oil and work longer, right? But you want to make sure you're effective with each one of your hours. And one of the main reasons that people don't get their tasks accomplished is because they don't properly plan ahead of time to successfully complete the task in the first place. I mean, really think about it. How are you supposed to get something done and squeeze it into your schedule if you actually don't really understand how long it would take? Right? And so that's why I really wanted to make sure I focused on this time estimate portion today, and to really help you with that strategy. And then we have another strategy called chunking. And what chunking is let's say you have a massive task that you realize that it's actually bigger than you thought it would be, and you can just then break it down into smaller bite-sized chunks, right? So for instance, completing a YouTube video as you start your content creation strategy, right? Maybe that you took the time to think about it, you did the thought experiment, and you're like, wow, I'm gonna need 3 hours. Well, you can easily chunk that into 3 different chunks, right? Maybe let's say the first chunk is filming, and you do that for 1 hour. And let's say you can plan that today because you actually have an hour in your schedule that you can put that into. And then maybe the second chunk is adding subtitles and doing all the editing. And maybe that, because you're new to this, it might take you an hour as well. So now that you know you need an hour for that, you can slate that for tomorrow. And then last but not least, the third chunk can be actually loading the video and publishing the video to YouTube. And depending on how long the video is, that might take an hour. So now you can plan that for the day after tomorrow, right? And so now even one task that was too long, you now have been able to easily put it into your schedule so that you can manage your time effectively, right? So here's a simple example of a day in the life of myself, right? I literally take the time to list out my most important things that I have to get done, and I put the time estimate next to it first, just so I can make sure I can see that I can get all these things done and I can put them into my schedule. So, something like joint venture partnerships, I might break that down into smaller bite-sized chunks just so I can maybe get some of that stuff done today because I know I need 2 hours. Conference calls with clients, if I have a set conference call that I have to have with the client, and it's already preset and it's an hour out of my day, I make sure I put that there. And I also put a half hour just to schedule meetings because I need to set up meetings in advance so I can then know how my schedule and my days are going to run, right? So you want to be able to make sure you own your schedule, and really taking the time to understand the planning component will really help you look at your schedule and not feel overwhelmed, right? Everything will have a place, everything will have some organized fashion to it, and it's not a sprint. This is a marathon. Being an entrepreneur is a marathon. So you need to be able to give yourself some strategies that allow you to just do this every single day in, day out, with organization without feeling overwhelmed, right? And so today for your homework, I'd like you to just spend 5 to 10 minutes of really just looking at any task that you have to get accomplished and practicing the time estimation, chunking method, and planning your time, right? Just take some time to actually go through your schedule, think of the things you have to get accomplished, and start practicing this habit, because it is a habit. It's a way of thinking. And after, many occurrences doing this over and over, you'll get to the point where this becomes second nature. And then you start valuing your time a lot more effectively. You start seeing yourself checking things off the list, getting it done, and you don't feel as overwhelmed, right? And there's many other things that we can talk about that go into time management, but this is one of the strategies I really wanted to leave you guys with today. I hope you found it beneficial, and that's all I have for the presentation, but I would love to hear if you have any questions. So I'm going to stop sharing.